Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Daily English Learn. I'm Eva.
And I'm Mark. Great to have you here with us today.
You know, Mark, I was thinking about something this morning. How many times have you started learning something new, felt really excited for maybe 2 or 3 days, and then suddenly that excitement just disappeared?
Oh, every single time. I remember when I tried to learn guitar. First week, I was practicing 2 hours every day. Second week, maybe 30 minutes. Third week, the guitar was sitting in the corner collecting dust.
Exactly. And this happens with English too, right? Our students tell us all the time. They say, Eva, I started so strong. I was watching English videos, I was practicing every day, and then life got busy and I just stopped. And now I feel guilty about it.
That guilt is the worst part, because then you think, maybe I'm just not good at learning languages. Maybe English is too hard for me. But actually, the problem is not you. The problem is that nobody taught you how your mind works when you're learning something difficult.
That's what we want to talk about today. Not grammar, not vocabulary lists, but something much more important. How to train your brain to keep going even when things get hard. How to stay calm when you make mistakes. How to think like someone who actually succeeds at learning English.
Because here's the truth. The difference between people who become fluent and people who give up is not talent. It's not having more time. It's not being younger or smarter. The difference is what happens inside their head when things go wrong.
So if you've been feeling stuck lately, if you keep starting and stopping, if you feel nervous every time you have to speak English, this conversation is for you. We're going to walk through this together slowly and clearly, just like we're sitting in a room talking to you directly.
And by the end of today's episode, you'll have a completely different way of looking at your English journey. You'll understand why some days feel impossible and what to do about it. You'll learn how to be kind to yourself, but also strong enough to keep practicing even when you don't feel like it.
All right, let's begin with something really simple but powerful. Imagine you're walking down the street and suddenly your foot slips a little bit. Maybe there's some water on the ground or a small stone. Your body moves to the side for just 1 second.
What do you do in that moment? Do you fall down on the ground and say, "That's it, I'm never walking again, walking is too dangerous for me"?
Of course not. That would be crazy. You just catch yourself, maybe you laugh a little bit, and you keep walking. You don't even think about it. It's automatic.
But now let's talk about English. You're having a conversation with someone. You want to say something, but the words don't come out right. Maybe you forget a word. Maybe your sentence sounds strange. What happens in your mind?
For most learners, that little mistake feels huge. Your face gets hot, your heart beats faster, and your brain starts telling you a story. See? You're terrible at English. You'll never be able to speak properly. Everyone is judging you right now.
That story is the real problem, not the mistake itself, but what you tell yourself about the mistake. And this is where we need to change our thinking completely.
When you're learning English, mistakes are not proof that you're bad. Mistakes are proof that you're trying something difficult. They're proof that your brain is working, that you're pushing yourself into uncomfortable territory. That's actually a good sign.
Think about it this way. If you go to the gym and lift weights, your muscles feel tired and sore afterwards, right? That soreness is not a sign that exercise is bad for you. It's a sign that your muscles are getting stronger.
The same thing happens with your English brain. When you struggle to find words, when you feel confused, when you have to think hard to make a sentence, that uncomfortable feeling means your brain is building new connections. It's getting stronger.
So the first big mindset shift is this. Stop seeing struggle as a sign of failure. Start seeing struggle as a sign of growth. Every time English feels difficult, tell yourself, "Good, my brain is working right now."
Let me give you a real example from my own life. A few years ago, I was learning French. I went to a bakery in Paris and I wanted to buy bread. Very simple, right? But when the lady behind the counter asked me a question in French, my mind went completely blank.
What did you do?
I stood there like a frozen statue. I understood maybe half of what she said, but I was so nervous that I couldn't respond. Finally, I just pointed at the bread I wanted and said one word, that one. And then I left the shop feeling so embarrassed.
But here's the question. Did that experience mean you were bad at French?
No, it meant I was at a stage where speaking under pressure was still new and scary. My brain needed more practice in real situations. That awkward moment in the bakery was not a disaster. It was information. It was data showing me what I needed to work on.
Exactly. And that's our second big idea today. Instead of calling something a failure, call it feedback. Feedback just means information that helps you improve.
When you have a conversation in English and it doesn't go well, don't sit there thinking, I failed, I'm so bad at this. Instead, ask yourself, what did I learn from this? What do I need to practice more?
Maybe you learned that you need more vocabulary for talking about your job. Maybe you learned that you need to practice listening to fast speech. Maybe you learned that you freeze up when someone asks you an unexpected question.
All of that is useful information. Now you know exactly what to focus on. That difficult conversation just gave you a clear direction for your practice. That's not failure, that's progress.
And this changes everything, because when you start looking at every mistake as feedback instead of failure, you stop being afraid. You stop avoiding conversations. You stop hiding.
You start thinking, okay, let me try this. Let me see what happens. And if it goes badly, at least I'll learn something. That mindset makes you so much braver.
Now let's talk about something that stops a lot of learners, even before they begin. It's that voice in your head that says, I can't do this. I'm too busy. I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. My English is too weak.
We call these excuses, but really there's something else. They're fear wearing a disguise. Fear dressed up as a logical reason.
What do you mean by that, Eva?
Okay, think about it. When someone says, I'm too busy to practice English, sometimes that's true. They really do have a very full schedule. But often, if we're being honest, the real reason is, I'm scared that if I try and I'm still not good, then I'll feel even worse about myself.
So it's easier to say, I don't have time, than to say, I'm afraid I'll fail.
Exactly. And the tricky part is, we don't even realize we're doing this. We truly believe our excuse is the real reason. But if you look closely, you'll see fear hiding underneath.
I see this all the time with speaking practice. Students tell me my English is too basic. I can't speak yet. I need to study more grammar first. But when I ask them, okay, what grammar point do you need to learn before you can say hello and introduce yourself, they don't have an answer.
Because the grammar is not the real issue. The real issue is fear of sounding silly or making mistakes in front of others. And that's completely normal and human. We all feel that.
The solution is not to get rid of fear. You can't just delete fear from your brain. The solution is to acknowledge it honestly and then take a small action anyway.
Yes, you say to yourself, I'm scared, and that's okay, but I'm going to do one tiny thing today. Maybe I'll send one voice message in English to myself. Maybe I'll speak one sentence out loud while I'm alone in my room.
Those tiny actions are more powerful than you think, because every time you do something small, even though you're afraid, you're proving to yourself that fear doesn't have to stop you. You're training your courage muscle.
And that brings us to something really important, the difference between motivation and discipline. A lot of people wait for motivation before they practice English. They think, when I feel motivated, I'll study. When I feel excited, I'll practice speaking.
The problem is, motivation is like the weather. Some days it's sunny and beautiful. You wake up feeling amazing and ready to conquer the world. But other days it's cloudy and rainy. You wake up feeling tired and you don't want to do anything.
If you only practice on sunny days, you'll practice very little. Maybe 2 days this week, then nothing for 10 days, then 1 day, then nothing again. That's not how you build a skill.
Discipline is different. Discipline means you have a small routine that you follow no matter how you feel. It doesn't depend on your mood. It just happens because it's part of your day.
Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you feel motivated to brush your teeth. You don't wake up and think, do I feel excited about dental hygiene today? You just do it because it's automatic.
So how do we make English practice automatic like that? We make it very small and we attach it to something we already do every day.
For example, after you drink your morning tea or coffee, you listen to 2 minutes of English. That's it. Just 2 minutes. You connect it to your tea time so you don't have to think about it or decide. It just happens.
Or after you brush your teeth at night, you say 3 sentences in English out loud. You describe your day in simple words. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just speak.
The key is making it so small that you can't say no. 2 minutes is nothing. 3 sentences is nothing. But if you do that every single day, it adds up to real progress.
And here's the beautiful part. Once you start, you often continue. You think, I'll just listen for 2 minutes. And then 5 minutes pass and you're still listening because your brain is already engaged.
But even if you stop after 2 minutes, it still counts. You kept your promise to yourself. You practiced discipline. And that builds something much deeper than English skills. It builds self-trust.
Self-trust means you believe yourself when you say you're going to do something. And that's one of the most important things you can develop in your life.
Now I want to talk about what happens in the moment when you're actually speaking English and you feel panic rising in your chest. Your mind goes blank, your hands start shaking a little bit, someone asks you a question and you don't know how to respond.
This happens to everyone. Even people who are fluent sometimes have moments where they freeze. So what do you do in that moment?
The first thing is to breathe. I know that sounds too simple, but it actually works. When you're nervous, your breathing becomes fast and shallow. Your body thinks you're in danger.
So you take one slow breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just one breath. That tells your body, we're safe, we can think clearly now.
And then you use what we call a time-buying phrase. These are little sentences that give you a few extra seconds to think. For example, you can say, "That's a good question. Let me think."
Or you can say, how can I explain this? Or give me a moment. Or even just, sorry, can you repeat that?
All of these phrases are completely normal and natural. Native speakers use them all the time. They're not signs of weakness. They're signs that you're thinking carefully about your answer.
And here's something really important. It's okay to answer in a simple way. You don't have to give a perfect, complex answer with advanced vocabulary. Simple English is still real English.
If someone asks you, "What did you do last weekend?" and you can't remember the word for hiking, you can just say, "I walked in the mountains." That's perfectly fine. Communication happened. You shared your idea.
Exactly. The goal is connection and understanding, not perfection. So when you feel that pressure to perform perfectly, remind yourself, simple and clear is always better than complex and confusing.
Let me tell you about one of my students. His name is Raj, and he works in IT. He told me that he used to prepare speeches in his head before meetings. He would write down exactly what he wanted to say and memorize it.
And what happened?
He said the moment someone asked an unexpected question, his whole plan collapsed. He couldn't respond naturally because he was trying to remember his script. He felt more anxious than if he had just spoken normally.
That's such a common mistake. We think preparation means memorizing perfect sentences, but actually, preparation means being comfortable with not being perfect.
Yes, Raj started practicing something different. Instead of memorizing speeches, he practiced responding to random questions out loud by himself. He would imagine different questions and practice giving simple, honest answers without worrying about grammar.
And did that help?
He said it changed everything. In meetings, when someone asked him something, he didn't panic anymore because he had practiced the feeling of not knowing exactly what to say and figuring it out as he spoke.
That's such an important point. You have to practice being uncomfortable. You have to practice the feeling of not having the perfect words ready.
Because that's what real conversation is. It's messy and spontaneous and imperfect. And the more you practice that messiness alone, the easier it becomes with other people.
All right, let's talk about something that might surprise you. A lot of learners think the problem is that they don't know enough English. They think, if I just study more grammar, if I just memorize more words, then I'll be able to speak.
But actually, many learners already know enough English to have basic conversations. The problem is not knowledge, the problem is confidence.
And confidence doesn't come from studying more. Confidence comes from doing the thing you're afraid of, even if you do it badly, and surviving.
Every time you speak English and nothing terrible happens, your brain registers that. It says, oh, speaking English is not actually dangerous. I can do this.
But if you keep avoiding speaking because you're waiting to feel ready, your brain never gets that evidence. It stays convinced that speaking English is scary and dangerous.
So you have to give your brain new evidence, and the way you do that is through tiny exposures, not big dramatic challenges, just small moments of speaking.
For example, you go to a shop and you ask one question in English, "Where is the rice?" That's it, one question. You're not having a long conversation, you're just proving to yourself that you can open your mouth and words can come out.
Or you record a 30-second voice note on your phone talking about what you had for breakfast. Nobody else has to hear it, it's just for you, but you're practicing the act of speaking without stopping to correct yourself.
These tiny practices might seem pointless, but they're actually building something crucial. They're building your tolerance for discomfort.
And that tolerance is what separates people who become fluent from people who stay stuck. Fluent people are not more talented, they're just more willing to feel awkward and keep going anyway.
You know, Eva, there's one more thing I think we need to talk about before we finish today, and that's the way we speak to ourselves in our own minds.
Oh, this is so important. The voice inside your head can either be your biggest supporter or your biggest enemy.
Most learners have a very harsh voice in their head. When they make a mistake, that voice says, "You're so stupid. You'll never learn this. Everyone is better than you."
But imagine if you had a friend who spoke to you that way. Every time you made a small mistake, they said, "Wow, you're terrible. You should just give up." Would you want to spend time with that friend?
Of course not. You would stop talking to them. But somehow we let that voice live in our own head, and we listen to it all day long.
The way to change this is to notice when that harsh voice appears and consciously replace it with something kinder. Not fake positivity, just realistic kindness.
Instead of, "I'm so bad at English," you say, "I'm still learning, and that's okay." Instead of, "I'll never be fluent," you say, "I'm not fluent yet, but I'm making progress."
That one word, yet, is incredibly powerful. It turns a closed door into an open door. It reminds you that where you are now is not where you'll always be.
And when you start speaking to yourself with more patience and encouragement, something shifts. You don't give up as easily. You try more things. You bounce back faster from difficult moments.
Because you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're on your own team, and that makes all the difference.
So here's what we want you to take away from today's conversation. Learning English is not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about training your mind to stay steady when things get hard.
It's about seeing mistakes as feedback, not failure. It's about taking tiny actions even when you don't feel motivated. It's about being kind to yourself while still showing up every day.
And it's about understanding that everyone who speaks English well went through the exact same struggles you're going through right now. The only difference is they didn't let those struggles stop them.
You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know everything. You just need to keep going, one small step at a time, with a patient voice in your head and a willingness to feel uncomfortable sometimes.
That's what builds real, lasting progress. Not talent, not luck, not perfect conditions, just showing up regularly and being gentle with yourself along the way.
All right, my friends, that's where we're going to leave it for today. We hope this conversation gave you a different way of thinking about your English journey.
Remember, every single person listening to this right now has the ability to improve. The question is not, can you do it? The question is, will you give yourself permission to be imperfect while you're learning?
We believe in you, and we'll be here with you every step of the way. This is Eva.
And this is Mark.
From Daily English Learn. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
Keep going, keep practicing, and be kind to yourself. We'll see you in the next episode.